So growing up, Ben 10 was one of my favorite franchises along with Transformers. I just thought it was like super neat that he was able to turn on all these different types of aliens. I stuck with it for a pretty long time, but it was one of those franchises I kind of faded on by the time when Omniverse first released. Until recently when I watched the intake videos. I have rekindled with Ben 10 and watched most of it. And yeah, some stuff definitely hasn't held up. So as I often do, what if I rewrote it? This is another take on Ben 10. The original series can go by just fine, but like with the Ink Tank's rewrite of the Negative 10, so we get a better team lineup, just make Driscoll Enoch, is not really a great reason to not just have him be the same character. A better use of Cooper, setting up his crush on Gwen, setting up Kevin's crush on Gwen, just better use of Cooper in general, and a last second inclusion of feedback. For Alien Force, the Hybrid War storyline can overall go by completely normally, but some small differences, like instead of Ben being able to take off the watch in the first episode because, that's not an easy thing to do, and will even be reestablished not to be an easy thing to do. Ben still has the watch on, he just hasn't used the Omnitrix in 5 years. He put it in sleep mode or something because of malware. I'm also wanting to remove Alien X for now. Omniverse definitely redeems this character, but especially in Alien Force, he's just a complete waste of time. A lot of marketing around him just for him not to really do that much until Ultimate Alien. So instead, Ben's 10th alien is Lodestar. But then we switch their premiere at the finale, so Alien X is what he unlocks at the end of the season 2 finale, setting up both in-universe and the fandom questioning who this is. So the season 1 finale would instead be the premiere of Raph. And he's tossing around 6'6", and Emperor Milius. And Atea just thinks he's really neat. More controversially, I want to remove Chromastone because especially how they design him, he looks and acts, and even how they use him later is just ultimate Diamond Head. So let's replace him with Fast Track, everyone's favorite alien. Now into the actual meat and potatoes, the episodes of Season 3. Vengeance of Vilgax begins basically the same, with Vilgax defeating the Galactic Enforcers. I'm going to confirm that Ultimos is killed, and all of them get their powers drained. I'll also add Technorg from the original series, who I think should have just joined the Galactic Enforcers even back then. I also hate Vilgax's design. It just looks such like a downgrade from his original, so I would prefer if he looked something like this. Art by Nasco Samuel. I also like this one other art I found on Reddit where he takes trophies from everyone. I don't know, Vilgax just looks so much better with a gas mask, and none of his other designs understand this for some reason. Also, is it really that hard to get Steven Bloom? And then with him back, you can also play Siphon doing his Starscream voice, and also Fast Track. Either way, using the Casey Keller Accords, and using the Conqueror's Challenge, he now owns their worlds. Now he's heading to Earth. Meanwhile, Kevin and Gwen are doing their thing against the snake. Ben's getting an award from an alien. He acts all standoffish. But as soon as he leaves and he adds the trophy to the rest, he kind of just squeeze about how cool he thinks being famous is. He gets called by Gwen and he comes in with Jet Ray and Cannonbolt. They're pissed that he took so long. He's acting all cocky again. Meanwhile, Vilgax arrives and he terrorizes the military. So Max and his gang has to stop him, which doesn't go too well. Ben's very full of himself from saving the galaxy yet again, which makes everyone else pissed. But then they notice a bunch of ships in the air, and a big hologram of Vilgax calling Ben out. So the group arrives and they find Siphon, and they ask what's going on, and Siphon, rather than Max, explains what's happening, while also going into the backstory of Vilgax, about what Vilgax has been up to since the last we saw him. So at the end of Secrets of the Omnitrix, Ben tossed Vilgax into space. He's been flying through space for a year, till he eventually crash landed on top of someone on a planet.
Hooray! Everyone give praise to our new violent savior! Bahudores, Bahudores!
No! And because Vilgax Wizard of Oz on top of a monster being a champion of the planet, and by the laws of the Galactic Concordance, this now means Vilgax owns the planet, being the new champion. Eventually he had a Thane built to absorb powers, and for the last 4 years he's been conquering his way through the galaxy. Some of the races he's conquered might not be the coolest, but eventually all these powers stacked up.
To work for me after because I really hate mowing the lawn.
Well, yes, actually. Vilgax arrives and he just like completely curve stomps Ben, even in all of his new transformations. Instead of the glove, he gets the powers of grabbing intangible things, electricity from Synaptic's powers. Vilgax even beats Humongousaur. Ben goes way big, like in Secrets of the Omnitrix. But Vilgax, now with the ability to fly, he just like Attack on Titans him. He pins Ben, and Ben just like desperately screams a timeout. And Siphon says the champions are allowed a 24-hour break, but if he's not back in that time, then he is forfeit and Vilgax wins by default. Ben's very upset and he tries getting help from Max, but Max says this is kind of up to him. He can't really do anything, or the plumbers can't really. Leading into part 2, Kevin and Ben do not hack the Omnitrix because that's stupid. Just have Ben turn into all of his past 19. So we skip over all of this pointless stuff, and also I don't want to give Kevin any of this crap. I think they should evolve his powers though. So bring up those little balls that Gwen gave him in Dark Star Rising. Kevin can now like absorb with less material, and let's see he gets like a little creative with it. He also fashions the material balls into like a necklace, and we bring back the locket because it's meant to be like important to him. Either way, Ben is like upset that he lost to Vilgax, and he wants to just grab Julie's ship and fly away. Gwen asks why can't he just use Alien X, and Ben says, well, he hasn't really mastered Alien X, and he's scared if Vilgax knows he has it. But then like Azimuth calls him and tells him that it's important that he actually wins this contest and not give up the Omnitrix. And with some reassurance from Julie and like they kiss, Ben gets the confidence to say hero time, but then a bunch of Vilgax's guys jump them to try and like delay him so Vilgax will win by default. Ship forms some armor around Julie early, and then the rest of the group holds them off as Ben goes fast track and makes it back to the arena. And there's a bunch of like news people watching and talking about how all these alien heroes are related and are Ben. Ben makes it back last second, the fight begins again, and Ben has to think a little more strategically rather than just being too cocky. Vilgax runs at him with his fast track speed using the hammer and gun from the promo art. We won't see again because Upchuck grabs him with his tongues and shoots it back at Vilgax's face. Brings out his sword, but then Ben just goes Lodestar, messes up his cybernetics with his magnetism. Then Ben goes Echo Echo, and Echo chambers around Vilgax. But then Vilgax uses his dark side laser eyes and takes them all out. Everyone's like, what? No! But there's one left, and he turns Diamond Head, and just kind of finishes like in the real episode. Ben tries to get him to yield. Vilgax is like, screw it, and tries to get everyone to attack. But most of them just kind of like set down. And all the ships that don't get blasted by the plumbers. Max approaches, saying that Vilgax has been defeated. That means they no longer serve you. And he like kind of makes Ben reluctantly have to wave away everyone's independent. He's not their champion. He's only the defender of Earth. And Vilgax gets hauled away by the plumbers. Ben's kind of happy that he defended Earth and defeated Vilgax yet again, but Max has to remind him now that everyone knows his secret, but he still has a team. And Siphon, because Vilgax destroyed his home planet, so he just kind of has to stick with Ben as his servant who lives in his garage. And Twist, he's actually still in communication and loyal to Vilgax. Episode 3, Inferno. This could be an okay episode if we get rid of this guy. Re-established because Vilgax conquered all those planets, and because Ben defeated him, he got all those planets, but then waived them independence. That also includes Earth, so that technically means, by international law, in space, Volcanus was able to get the permit so he can mine, farm, and even change the climate on the planet. So now the group has to stop him, and we also establishes that Volcanus' species has the ability to regenerate, because we have seen what their arms and bodies look like underneath. But like they regenerate literally slow, so we can still have Volcanus be like this. Episode 4, Don't Fear the Repo. Might be a hot take, but I actually kind of like the Friedels and this episode. Other than the inevitable ugh men, ugh girls kind of line I hate. Also the line where you don't eat kids even if they are delicious will be oddly relevant later. Episode 5, Simple. This is an episode I wanted to really like because of its messaging about war and how it's stupid, especially against people who are so similar. But they really half-ass it, and Kevin being just so frandalized and unlikable in this episode. The episode can keep roughly the same plot of a little girl calling Ben to try and stop a war. I would change it where Ben is going alone, but with Chip. He makes it to the red and blue planet. He goes Lodestar intentionally to try and stop their fighting by taking their weapons away, which only makes them angrier. He starts talking to both sides, and it roughly goes similarly, except for the little orphan girl is doing the Oliver Twist thing, and she gets turned away by the blue commander. So Ben gives her some food later and starts talking to her, and she explains that their prophet was this great guy who had great ideas, but also people started fighting over the most petty, slight translation issues and what color he was. So Ben just kind of forces the two groups together to try and negotiate a peace. It almost goes well, but instead of something stupid like a handshake, it's a mistranslation, like Ben says I'm rather than I am, which is what the Reds say. Ben also notices some paint being bubbly and chipping off on some of the weapons. He starts scratching them. He also realizes there's someone familiar stealing a bunch of weapons from a battlefield. He comes across Argent, who's been war profiteering. Maybe a scare from Humungosaur, and Argent admits that he's been on this planet for a while, stirring up some animosity between both sides so he can make money off of selling weapons to both sides. So he forces Argent to admit this, and the two commanders realize they have more in common than they have differences. They decide to move away from their old ideas and their old prophet, whose ideas might have been good at a time. We can still definitely learn from it, but focusing too much on the past blinds you to the future. So let's just keep moving forward to actually see. Now with peace, everyone wears purple. And now they're going to execute Argent for disturbing the peace, inciting war profiteering, and just being an overall nuisance. So now Ben, ironically using his red and blue transformations, have to save him. Orphan Girl gets all of Argent's profiteering money. Argent and Ben go out for smoothies, and it's kind of like Gwen and Kevin didn't even move since last time we saw them. Episode 6, Fool's Gold. Never happened. I know why it was written, but it never happened. So we can continue the series without it. Then maybe in All Else Fails, we see Ben actually turn into a hybrid transformation. Even if it's just going to be a one-off time. I'm going to leave it off for now. But what do you guys think? You like any of my ideas? If you have any better ideas, let me know in the comments below. And make sure to like and share. If you're new here, subscribe.